Welcome back, everyone. This is Learn City professional class. So, you're just joining us for the first time. I want to seize this privilege to welcome you to the platform of professional erudites, the platform of academic scholars, where we unleash the arsenal of resources that you need for that outstanding feat in your forthcoming professional examination. So, we'll be continuing with our topic on cost, volume, profit analysis, CVPA. So, in our previous series, lecture series, we've been able to look at the concepts of CVPA. What gave birth to CVPA? What's the rationale that makes the application of CVPA germane and inevitable in management accountancy? So according to what I said in previous lectures, CVPA is one of the topics that forms a very strong pillar in any form of certification you are pursuing in the financials, be it accountancy, be it banking and finance, or any form of other certification, CFA, ACCA, ICAN, ICAG, and other form of professional certification that could be pursued. So, in today's class, we'll be looking at the assumptions governing CVPA, or what we refer to as break-even analysis. Now, we are not going to forget, in our previous class we said that CVPA is an analysis that unveils, that unravels, that depicts or shows the relationship that exists between the cost, the sales volume, and the profit. It shows what's the intensity of changes in any of these variables, what consequences or what cause and effects will it have on another variable. But to be able to apply the principle of CVPA, that is the study of profit as a result of changes in cost and sales volume, then there are some basic assumptions, there are some specified outlines that must not be contradicted or must not be relaxed in the application of CVPA. These are what we refer to as assumptions of CVPA or break-even analysis. Number one principle or assumption is that the principle of cost variability must be valid. Hope we understand that. Now, the principle of cost variability, the principle that cost changes with the level of activity must be valid. This is, in other words, trying to talk about that marginal costing must be in place before CVPA can be assumed. So, cost variability, variable costing, must be in place, must be adopted for CVPA to be applicable. That is, all the costs must not be fixed. There must be some part or almost all part of the cost must be variable for CVPA to be applicable. So this is number one assumption that must not be relaxed in the application of break-even analysis. So you need to take this into cognizance anytime you are in the exam condition and while attempting your question. Another assumption is that cost must be resolvable. Cost can be resolved into fixed and variable components. So, to be able to apply break-even analysis, we must be able to recognize some part of the cost which are fixed and some part of the cost which are variable. So we must be able to say, to distinguish, to segregate, to differentiate, to dichotomize some part of the cost which are fixed from the part of the cost which are variable. Actually, one of the procedure of doing this in cost accounting is what we refer to as, there are basically two procedures or methods of doing this, of resolving cost into fixed and variable components. Actually, for this level, and the two methods are what we refer to as the high-low method and the regression method. Actually, when we get there, under cost separation and analysis, we'll be able to look at this in detail. But one of the basic assumptions of BEP, or one of the basic assumptions of cost volume profit analysis, is that total fixed cost is expected to remain constant throughout the relevant range. So, actually, total fixed costs are always fixed or constant. But under cost analysis, we believe that there are times in which fixed cost also varies, most especially in certain situations when it has exceeded the relevant range or level of activity. When the relevant range of activity is actually exceeded, this gives birth to what we refer to as a step fixed cost. Another form of changes in fixed cost is when we have incremental or differential fixed cost. But for the purpose of CVPA and break-even analysis, it is expected that fixed cost must be constant throughout the relevant range. So, it does not make use of step fixed cost or incremental fixed cost or differential fixed cost. Fixed cost must be fixed. This is the third assumption of break-even analysis, CVPA. Another assumption of break-even analysis of CVPA is variable cost per unit vary proportionally with volume. So, it is expected that the variable cost must vary commensurately in accordance proportionally with the changes in the level of activity or the volume level. So, variable cost per unit is expected to vary with the level of activity or the production volume. Here's the fourth assumption. Another assumption is that the selling price, SP, is not expected to change. The selling price per unit. Don't forget, by the time we move forward, we're looking at the word, the terminology contribution. Contribution plays a very significant role in CVPA application. And how do we arrive at contribution? Contribution is mainly selling price per unit minus the variable cost per unit. So, that's why we say the selling price per unit must not change even as the volume of activity or production volume changes. So, within the relevant range, the selling price is expected to be constant, or else there will be a review to the application of CVPA. The last assumption The last but not the least, because there are other assumptions, but these are just the germane assumption, is that the efficiency of plants can be predicted. That is, the efficiency in operation must be predictable. That is, there must be a stable working condition. So, these are the assumptions that must be played, or that must have a role to play before CVPA can be implemented. In a nutshell, in case an examiner preempts you or informs you to deduce what are the limitations of CVPA, almost all these assumptions or few of these assumptions are not realistic when it comes to reality. Number one, efficiency of plants or stable working condition might not always be predictable, or a working condition might not always be stable, because there are exigencies, there are contingencies, there are unplanned for events, there are emergencies, there are machine breakdown time, there are idle time. All these are not captured in the assumptions of CVPA. So it's actually criticizable, and with some other criticisms that have been made against this assumption. So in our next class, we'll be looking at computations involving CVPA.